Violet Flowergarden was a YouTuber who uploaded videos related to Star Stable, an online game where players ride and take care of horses. In January 2023, her followers were shocked to learn of her sudden death, but sadness and grief soon turned into suspicion and anger when horrific family secrets emerged, leaving many wondering if there was more to her death than was originally reported. Let's investigate. If you enjoy internet mysteries and generally disturbing content, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can become a Ko-fi member or a channel member to gain access to uncut videos and other perks, or you can leave me a tip by clicking the thanks under this video. Thanks to anyone who considers this. This video will cover topics that some might find triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. You can become a Ko-fi member to watch an uncut version of this video, which features extra details that were unsuitable for this cut. Star Stable is an MMORPG where players can ride horses, care for and train them, solve quests and mysteries, and explore the island of Jorvik. Violet Flowergarden, real name Sophia Dinverno, began posting YouTube videos over 10 years ago, around the age of 13. Her earlier uploads were mostly music videos she'd created with footage of her playing Star Stable, with the occasional video showing a challenge or a trend in the game. She started uploading much more frequently around 5 years ago, with more diverse content, though all still related to Star Stable, including Let's Plays, tutorials, and tours of places in the game. Sophia seemed like a happy, likeable person who was passionate about the game and horses in general, and as a result, she became a highly regarded member of the community, eventually amassing 180,000 subscribers on YouTube and 60,000 followers on Instagram, where she would mostly post screenshots of her character and horses in Star Stable. Little did her audience know of the horrors that were occurring off camera. Sophia grew up in a rural home in Grass Lake, Michigan, with her parents and 6 siblings, who currently range from elementary school to high school age. They were a Catholic family, and her father Joel said that they practice a pre-1958 version of Catholicism, which has been described by other family members as his own created version of the religion. Joel is a well-known pediatrician in the sleepy, tight-knit community. Sounds like the type of place where everyone knows everyone and secrets don't remain secrets for long. Following in her father's footsteps to some extent, Sophia was pursuing an education in nursing, and in addition to her interest in Star Stable, she enjoyed being around horses in real life and competed in numerous equestrian events with her horse Lola. She occasionally uploaded videos on her YouTube channel showing herself riding Lola, and her passion for horses inevitably increased her popularity within the Star Stable community. Compared to the likes of Mr. Beast, 180,000 subscribers might not seem like a crazy high number, but in such a small niche community, Sophia was very well known, which meant the tragic news that emerged in January 2023 had a massive impact on players of Star Stable. On the 17th of that month, Sophia unexpectedly passed away. Her cause of death was later revealed to be a drug overdose. The manner of death has still not been publicly disclosed, though initially it was presumed by many to have been accidental or intentional for unknown reasons. The Star Stable subreddit was quickly filled with posts from users expressing their condolences and shock and sadness that Sophia had died at the young age of 23. The Star Stable developers also shared their condolences and apparently added violet flowers in the game at certain areas to commemorate her. Many players of the game had watched her on YouTube for years, met her in the game, and some had even become close friends with her. Her death was truly a great loss to the community. Their initial misery soon turned into confusion though. How and why did this happen? It made no sense. She had uploaded a video just 2 days prior and nothing seemed amiss. She appeared to be her normal, happy self. She was laughing in the video, as enthusiastic as always, not a hint of sadness in her voice. However, there was a lot going on behind the scenes that no one knew about. Since before Sophia even started her channel, she had kept a devastating secret that wouldn't be publicly revealed until a few months later. In 2021, a criminal investigation was launched into allegations made by Sophia against her father Joel. She claimed that he had sexually abused her between the ages of 9 and 15. She also implied that one of her brothers, I wasn't able to figure out which one, had acted inappropriately with her, stating he had a habit of intruding in her bedroom and the bathroom while she was using it. I couldn't find any more details on that though, so we'll just focus on the allegations against her father. While Joel hasn't been convicted because of this, it'd be somewhat inaccurate to simply refer to Sophia's claims as allegations because he actually admitted it. I had to sift through a lot of information to get as close to the full picture as possible, so I'll do my best to condense and summarise it in chronological order, but you can find various articles and reports online, including a court report from September 2022 that goes into more detail. When Sophia was 15, she learnt at school about good touch and bad touch, and one day when her mother, Deanne, picked her up, she told her that Joel had inappropriately touched her when she was 9. Deanne claims that she asked Sophia if she wanted to report it to the police or sign up for counselling, and apparently Sophia declined. So, like any good parent would, Deanne basically swept it under the carpet and never did anything about it. I mean, she claimed to have asked her other children if they had experienced anything similar, and they said they hadn't, and then she pretended it never happened. When Deanne and Joel were interviewed in August 2021, Deanne reportedly indicated that she would have difficulty calling the police on Joel and that he was physically violent towards her. According to the petition that documented this, Joel apparently admitted to essaying Sophia and apologised to her, even writing her a letter to express his guilt, saying that he'd never harm her again. On a separate occasion, without admitting to actual SA, Joel told investigators that there were multiple occasions where Sophia sat on his lap and he would get an erection. He claimed they were both fully clothed, however Sophia claimed that she had no clothes on and he was in his underwear. Joel responded by saying that this was inaccurate, but that he didn't want to call his daughter a liar. Joel also told investigators he had confessed these interactions to a priest who advised him to stop. However, it continued for several months before he returned to ask for forgiveness, which makes it blatantly obvious that this was no accident. He clearly enjoyed it. He claimed that he did not think Sophia was even aware of these incidents and recalled it as an unwise situation. Contrary to her parents' claims, as an adult, Sophia claimed she was abused between the ages of 9 and 15, not just at the age of 9. Considering she only spoke out about it after a class in school, it seems that she didn't realise what was happening to her was wrong, as if it had been normalised the whole time. Sophia alleged that there was more involved than just inappropriate touching, but I couldn't find any further details as to what she may have meant by this. She was supposed to testify in court, however she couldn't make it because she was hospitalised. I couldn't find out why she was in hospital, apart from her mother implying it was due to stress. I'm not going to speculate too much on this, but it does seem a bit convenient that she was hospitalised right before she was due to testify. Make of that what you will. The criminal charges were eventually dropped, apparently because Sophia didn't want to move forward with the investigation. Still, CPS were involved at this point, and they filed a petition seeking jurisdiction over 4 of Sophia's siblings who were still minors. This resulted in Joel being removed from the family home and ordered not to have any contact with these 4 children. Ultimately, a judge ruled that Joel could return home and his parental rights would not be terminated, but are his other children safe around him? Deanne consistently testified that she did not believe her other children had been SA'd. She said she noticed no behaviour that might indicate they had been through anything similar to Sophia, but quite frankly, I wouldn't believe a word that comes out of this woman's mouth. Sophia alleged that Deanne was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Joel, and Deanne even implied this herself at one point, before backtracking and claiming that if she had a reason to report Joel to the police, she would, as if her own daughter being abused by him isn't enough reason. It's probable that Deanne was, and perhaps still is, scared of Joel, and this prevented her from reporting him at any point. Not that this at all justifies her taking the risk of more of her children being harmed by him. All of the children were interviewed during the investigation, and none apart from Sophia claimed to have been SA'd by Joel. However, Sophia claimed that all of the children were physically abused, and that her younger sister had confided in her that she had also been SA'd by him, and Lydia apparently asked Sophia to remove her from the family home. Deanne does not believe Lydia was also a victim, stating that she told her everything, so she would have been made aware if anything was happening, and Lydia did not make any allegations to investigators. However, it was mentioned in the court report that it took 6 years for Sophia to speak out, implying it could be another 6 years until Lydia would. Despite Deanne's claims that none of the other children showed any signs of being abused, information in the court records could suggest otherwise. Lydia was described as really shy. She had behavioural issues, was anxious and acted out, but was also reserved and afraid of new situations. She had been homeschooled for some time, and when she started attending a regular school, she needed therapy to help her adapt. It was also reported that she engaged in selective mutism, barely speaking at all in school, though according to Deanne, she was a chatterbox at home. Deanne claimed that her son Josiah was a social child but struggled in school, stating that his behaviour changed after he was given a weed muffin at school. A couple of incidents were described in the court records. One time when the family were on vacation, he became destructive and had to be driven home. When he arrived, he, quote, threw items into the pool and expressed fear that Deanne would be electrocuted. Following this incident, he was taken for psychiatric treatment for a few weeks and medicated. However, he stopped taking the medication because it caused him to gain weight. Sometime later, he suffered a mental breakdown in which he walked around naked, claiming he was Jesus. He was hospitalized for a year. No information was provided about Elijah, apart from that he was born with a condition that rendered him non-verbal and confined to a wheelchair. Noah had a speech impediment during his childhood, but it sounds like this improved significantly after speech therapy. At the time of the court records, he participated in athletics and was preparing to go to college. Isaiah was the only child that wasn't reported as having any problems growing up. He and Noah were described as model students. This is just speculation, but perhaps Noah and Isaiah were the only children who weren't harmed in some way because they were model students, or they were model students because they weren't harmed. Deanne acknowledged that 4 of her other children had issues that required intervention by police, emergency personnel, or counsellors, though denied that this could have been linked with potential physical abuse, or SA. That said, Deanne admitted that Joel had used forms of physical punishment on their children, according to the report. Deanne also acknowledged that father was the disciplinarian in the family, but she did not have any concerns with the degree or extent of his punishments. When Sophia was only 2 years old, the parents took a course entitled Growing Kids God's Way at the home of a paediatrician. This course taught corporal punishment, and through it, the parents acquired a spanking stick. For the last 10 years, however, the parents determined that graduated punishment, such as timeouts and removal of privileges or electronic devices, was more effective. We've covered 6 out of 7 children so far. You might be wondering what happened with the 7th child, Micah. Well, here's where things get even darker. Micah was arguably the child with the most problems. He was prone to violent outbursts and destruction of property. Deanne testified that he would go into a rage, kick walls, throw chairs, and start fights with his father Joel, though at a separate time she denied that Micah had a bad relationship with Joel. Yet more inconsistencies in her story. The police had been called to the home due to Micah's outbursts so many times that the officers knew him quite well. Deanne claimed she tried to take Micah for counselling, but he refused, until sometime in 2020 when he finally agreed to see a counsellor to, quote, become a better person. And then shortly after, he died. Micah's death in June 2020 at the age of just 19 was unexpected. He had no known medical conditions, and according to the 2022 court records, the coroner was unable to determine why, stating in the autopsy that his death was the result of an unknown cause. However, Deanne opined that it was due to an accidental drug overdose, as he apparently used marijuana and kratom, a highly addictive opioid-like herbal substance that originates in Southeast Asia. MLive.com, who obtained a copy of police reports related to the criminal investigation into Joel, stated that the medical examiner determined Micah's death was due to an accidental OD. I can't explain the discrepancy here. Either way, Deanne seems to be implying that his death was caused by ODing on marijuana and kratom, and that'd be extremely unlikely. There were a grand total of 0 reported cases of deaths due to marijuana OD, and while there are some reports of deaths where kratom could have been a contributing factor, almost all of these involved an OD of other much more dangerous substances too. One report linked 11 deaths over a 7-year period with kratom use, and only 2 of these were connected to kratom alone. However, it's not specified whether the deaths were caused by an OD, or if it indirectly led to the deaths in some way. Anyway, if drugs were the cause of Micah's death, that's 2 of Joel's children that have died in the same way. I'm not making any accusations here, but I think that's kinda suspicious, especially considering Joel is a doctor, and, unsurprisingly, it turns out some of his practices were highly questionable to say the least. Following the criminal investigation into Joel, the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs opened an investigation into his medical license, resulting in an administrative complaint. The focus of this investigation was the fact that Joel was his children's primary doctor. He kept almost no medical records for any of them, prescribed them medications such as antibiotics with no documentation, and also refused to vaccinate them, citing personal religious beliefs. This ties in with what family members said about him basically creating his own version of Catholicism, because as far as I'm aware, while some specific vaccines may present somewhat of a dilemma for Catholics, there certainly isn't a blanket ban on them. Concluding the investigation, 4 claims were brought against Joel: violation of general duty, failing to meet minimal medical practice standards, failing to keep full medical records, and a lack of good moral character. Again, I'm not making any accusations, this is just a baseless suggestion, but if we know Joel prescribed his children medication without officially recording it, and in general it sounds like he is quite a shady doctor, and of course a morally reprehensible parent, is it beyond the realm of possibility that he could have obtained a drug that could have caused the deaths of Sophia and Micah? This appears to be a question that law enforcement are considering, as on the 12th of April, almost 3 months after Sophia's death, police obtained a search warrant for Joel's medical office and seized a number of computers. Michigan State Police told MLive.com, the search warrant was in relation to the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs investigation, as well as the suspicious death of Sophia Dinverna. As far as I'm aware, there is currently no investigation into Micah's death, however the case of Sophia's is still ongoing. If anything incriminating is found against Joel, perhaps this will cast doubt on the conclusion of Micah's cause of death too. It could be said for both siblings that the trauma that was inflicted on them drove them to take drugs to deal with everything, or even caused them to OD because they couldn't cope. Sophia in particular had a really rough couple of years prior to her death. Her brother died just a few days after her beloved horse passed, and her favourite cat also died not long after. Still, she didn't die right after these events. What happened right before that could have caused her to finally give up after somehow finding a way to cope for so long? As for Micah, he was clearly suffering for some time, but it's a little odd that he died so soon after he supposedly decided to get counselling and turn his life around. Looking at it through a skeptical lens, one could suggest that the timing was actually quite convenient for Joel. Who's to say that Micah wouldn't have revealed secrets to his therapist that would have resulted in dire consequences for his father? It's also interesting that Sophia died in the midst of an investigation into Joel's medical license. A skeptic might also wonder if Joel had managed to silence Sophia regarding her allegations of SA, but perhaps there was a lot more she could have revealed that would have jeopardized his medical license too, and maybe even put him in jail. Who knows? At this point, I think I've covered the main details of the story, but before the end of the video, I just wanted to briefly discuss the video of Micah's funeral that was uploaded on Facebook. I would recommend skimming through it yourself, as it might give you an idea of Joel's general demeanour, but there were a couple of points I wanted to highlight. My interpretation was that Joel seemed emotionless while reading his speech. He said he had never hurt anywhere close to this in his entire life, but was just expressionless throughout, reading somewhat monotonously from a script, not a tear in his eyes or even a vague hint of sadness on his face. This doesn't necessarily mean anything. Everyone grieves differently. It's not for me or anyone else to tell a parent whose son has just died that they should look or act a certain way, but a couple of the things he said also had me raising my eyebrows. For example, Micah's death appears to be a tragedy, but God brings a greater good. And Micah's death has already brought such good to me. He was generally referencing the support he received from the community, but I thought it was a very odd way of wording it. He also said, Micah has made mistakes, I have made mistakes, we all need to forgive ourselves because Jesus forgives us. And towards the end, Micah sought the truth and has now found the truth, which could be interpreted in a somewhat sinister way depending on what you believe to be the truth in this case. Another thing that didn't quite sit right with me was how Joel made a point of the fact that Micah often questioned religion. Considering how hardcore religious Joel is, why on earth would he be talking about his own son questioning their religion at his funeral? I'm trying not to overthink everything here, and I'm not saying Joel would have hurt Micah because he was questioning religion, but if he did hurt Micah, perhaps that could have been his justification to God. Maybe he could have seen it as him helping Micah to find the truth. I don't know. Quite frankly, this whole case is absolutely insane. You have a clearly dysfunctional family where the father literally admitted to inappropriate contact with his daughter, yet faced no consequences and still has unrestricted access to his other children, most of whom have displayed behaviour that could be indicative of abuse, all while the mother turns a blind eye and pretends everything is fine. The daughter he SA'd died under mysterious circumstances, as did one of his sons, in the exact same way, and he just happens to be a doctor who would likely know what to give someone to end their life and make it look like an accidental OD or intentional on their part. I'm still not making any accusations, but there are just too many coincidences in my opinion, and honestly it all seems suspicious as hell. What had happened to Sophia was apparently an open secret in the area she lived, and yet it seems that no one did anything to help her, so she wasn't just failed by her family, but by the whole community. I can only hope her and Micah are finally at peace now. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments, plus any suggestions you might have for a future video. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Huge thank you to my Ko-fi members and channel members whose names are on screen now. I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week in a new video.